So for the longest time, everybody tells us, hey, like, you gotta start investing. The earlier you can, the better off you'll be. For those families who have been in the know for like the longest, set up their kids to to have these type of accounts, these investing accounts, to pretty much get on top of get ahead of the game, get their kids ahead of the game compared to others within the same time frame or age range. But the funny part about it is that nobody actually tells us to what invest in, and obviously we know what to invest in already. The S&P, if you want steady growth, if you want aggressive, there's a large cap. There's large caps aggressive mutual funds and ETFs out there that you can toss your money in. But the point of this conversation that I'm trying to pick up right now is, what else can we invest in that's proven to be okay, that's proven to be good, or that's proven to be the best, right? The main advice that people tell us is invest in your 401k, toss money into it if you are eligible for a HSA, which is a health savings account. If you have enough disposable income to invest in a taxable brokerage account, then invest. And we get that for the most part, right? We invest our extra money into these accounts, and then buy stocks and ETFs as soon as we have that money in those accounts. But if we think about it, say a person has a taxable brokerage account. Say if the person has a Roth IRA or a regular IRA. Say the person has a 401k. Say the person also has an HSA. Do we just invest in the 401k? Do we just invest in the S&P 500? So if we have these 5 different types, and of course there's more out there, right? And if you have enough money to invest in all of them, then good for you. But to my point, if you have the HSA, if you have a Roth IRA, 401k, etc., of course we gotta invest. But do we only buy the S&P 500? To my point, we also have other ETFs out there like QQQ. We have Charles Schwab, US high dividend yielding ETF. We have other ETFs that focus on energy, focus on nuclear, etc. And for the most part, that's a good thing, right? We know what to buy. We know for the long run that we can have this money and in these particular ETFs with a great weight to the S&P and QQQ. But to my point, like, if we just invest in these particular ETFs throughout multiple accounts that we have, then most of our investments are tied to the S&P, are tied to the US market, are tied to the 500 top companies in the US. And that's, well, is that cool or not? Right? So if we have a lot of money tied to these accounts, or tied to these accounts that are invested into the same stocks, then our net worth is just mirrors the US market, or overall performance of the US market. And of course we can make the argument, hey, how much money do you want to invest in the S&P? How much money do you want to invest in solely QQQ, Charles Schwab? And of course the individual stocks that some people like to toy with. I know that I purchased them a long time ago, and I've held it this entire time, and they're in the green, and there's practically no reason for me to sell because that triggers capital gains. But to my point, if we only have this certain amount of money in these same particular stocks throughout multiple accounts, then our net worth is tied to the US market. Is that particularly a bad thing or a good thing? Well, I'm not sure. It depends how you want to interpret it. But I also want to make a note that it's also important to diversify outside the US market too. We have international ETFs. VTI, I think, is a good one. It's an ETF that Vanguard has, and we also have mutual funds out there that only has some that concentrates itself with international exposure. Companies like LG, companies like Mercedes, etc. Decent stocks that we can buy into, but aren't in the US because these brands are in the US. One is the first one. LG is a Korean brand, while Mercedes is a German brand, right? So I take that as you will. My little rant right now is, okay, we invest in what's typically known and what's proven to be good, and for the most part, for the average Joe, it could be, sure, why not, let's do it. But we also have other markets to invest into. We have the international markets that we can do. I know Dave Ramsey has a four different types of investments that we can look into, and I'm forgetting what's the partition. I'm looking at it right now. They range me 4 different types of investments. I know one is aggressive growth, international, and so yeah, growth and income. There we go. So the first one is growth. I'm assuming that's your S&P. Growth and income. I'm assuming that's your could be charge swap, but it's not growth. But pretty much companies that growing companies that pay high dividends. Aggressive growth, which is small cap stocks, and international like LG and Mercedes. And he tells us to invest at 25% of our investment in each type of mutual fund. So 25% growth, 25% growth in income, 25% aggressive growth, and 25% in international. And we could do this in our Roth, we could do this in our traditional IRAs or 401ks if the fund that you're if the brokerage that you're using actually supports having these particular mutual funds, then you can do it. Because I know some certain 401ks are pretty limited for some reason. But that's beside the point. If you have the availability to purchase or to invest in mutual funds that falls within one of these categories, or even all of these categories, 25% of your investment should be growth income, aggressive growth, and international. And go on ahead. At least this way, we would have diversified our money in a very aggressive growth, very aggressive mutual funds, and also have some of our money hedged into the international market. That's cool. So yeah, we don't always have to invest in S&P. There's also other mutual funds that outperform the S&P. Just look up mutual funds that have a good historical data and performance that has yielded more gains than the S&P 500. At least this way, we would have investments that outperform the S&P 500 and be ahead of the game. And so yeah, I believe my next video I want to talk about is how parents set up their offspring, their kids, to have a certain investment vehicle that will compound throughout the infancy, from 2 to 10, throughout the teenage years, onto when they are young adults, and have a strong, well-performing investment portfolio when they walk into their early 20s and so on. So I think that is an interesting video that I can talk on. Essentially, what it is: parents invest in money for their kids, and then for the rest of their lives, they'll pretty much be straight. There's 18 years minimum of compounding effect that the portfolio has. They have all the amount of time to pretty much grow, and it gets better if you keep investing a stable, certain amount of money throughout those 18 years. Of course, $100 a month will do wonders. Anyways, fellas, that's pretty much my video. If you guys enjoyed this video, then I will make sure to have another stock related video in your on your screen that you can click on. I pretty much want to talk about nothing but stocks, nothing but finance related topics, and of course topics that are controversial right now in the US, and of course throughout the whole world too. I think that's the direction I want to take this channel. Talk about stocks, talk about finances, talk about certain things that we can do to better ourselves financially, and of course talk about what's happening in the world and how we can directly benefit from those events. Alright, fellas, later.